The holographic screen flickered to life in Earth's central command chamber. A towering alien figure filled the display, his translucent armor refracting faint hues of crimson and gold. Grand Warlord Xylith Rex's voice boomed, resonating with a harsh cadence that silenced the room. "Humans," he sneered, the word dripping with disdain. "Your kind has grown bold, too bold for your own good. You meddle in affairs far beyond your place. The Galactic Empire, in its mercy, tolerated your primitive existence. No more. You will surrender your worlds, your technology, and your lives, or face annihilation." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving the room cloaked in tense silence. Commander Arya Voss exhaled, her fingers tightening on the edge of the command table. Her dark green eyes scanned the council members assembled around her, each reflecting varying shades of fear, defiance, and uncertainty. "Thoughts?" Arya broke the silence, her voice steady but sharp. "We can't win," muttered Chancellor Greer, his face pale under the chamber's fluorescent light. "Their fleet outnumbers ours 20 to 1. Our colonies are scattered, barely defensible. Surrender might." "No," Arya cut in, her tone as cold as the void outside. "Surrender isn't survival. It's extinction in chains." She stepped forward, activating a holographic projection of the solar system. Red markers representing the Empire's fleet had begun inching into the outer edges of human space. "They're testing us," Arya continued. "A small vanguard first, probing, assessing. If we crumble now, they'll crush us before the main fleet even arrives. We fight, and we fight smart." The first encounter came faster than anticipated. "Commander, Imperial scout ships detected on the outer perimeter," Lieutenant Devar reported from his station. His voice carried a blend of excitement and nerves, barely masking the weight of the moment. Arya strode to his side, her boots clicking against the polished floor. On the display, a formation of sleek, angular ships approached Earth's defense grid, their engines glowing with eerie blue light. "Just 5, Devar noted. "But their firepower outclasses our patrol fleet tenfold." "Good," Arya said with a faint smirk. "Let them think we're unprepared. Signal Patrol Squadron Theta. We're luring them in." In deep space, Theta's squadron floated in silence, their small, agile ships dwarfed by the approaching Imperial scouts. "This is suicide," muttered Captain Rowan over the comms. "Discipline, Captain," Arya's voice crackled through. "Remember the plan. Draw them into range of the automated turrets, then scatter. Timing is everything." As the Imperial ships entered the trap, their sleek forms suddenly lit up with bursts of energy. A barrage of plasma cannons erupted from the hidden turrets. The Empire's ships veered sharply, caught off guard by the ambush. "Turrets are engaging," Devar called from the command center. "2 enemy ships disabled. Bring Theta Squadron out," Arya ordered. "They've done their job." The remaining Imperial scouts retaliated, firing searing beams that obliterated 2 defense platforms. On the tactical display, Arya watched the carnage unfold, her jaw tightening. "Pull the turrets back," she commanded. "Let them believe they've forced a retreat." Devar hesitated. "Commander, if we pull back now, they'll come closer." "Do it." The Imperial ships pursued, their arrogance driving them deeper into the kill zone. As they reached the inner perimeter, an energy pulse from the defense grid surged outward, scrambling their systems. Arya's trap had sprung its second layer. "Fire at will," she commanded, her voice calm yet resolute. The final Imperial ships disintegrated under concentrated fire. A brief cheer erupted in the command room, but Arya raised a hand, silencing it. "That was a scout team," she reminded them. "The real fight hasn't begun." Hours later, the command chamber grew heavier with news from the outer colonies. Reports of small skirmishes trickled in, each one a reminder of the Empire's overwhelming reach. Arya stood alone at the holographic map, her mind racing through possibilities. The comms chimed, breaking her concentration. A familiar face appeared, a gray-haired man with sharp eyes and a wry smile. "Admiral Kane, commanding officer of the orbital fleet. Congratulations on the first win." Kane said, though his tone carried no joy. But the Empire won't make the same mistake twice. They'll bring dreadnoughts next. I know, Arya replied. And we'll be ready. We've trained for this. Training isn't a war, Commander. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and surrounded. We're human, Arya said simply. We've always been outnumbered. And yet here we are. Kane studied her for a moment before nodding. What's the plan? Arya's eyes flicked to the quantum defense grid, its holographic representation glowing faintly in the corner of the room. The grid is our best shot. If we can force their fleet into its range, we can cripple them before they know what hit them. But we'll need bait. I assume you mean my fleet, Kane said dryly. You're the best we've got. Kane chuckled darkly. You'd better hope your grid works, Commander. Because if it doesn't, there won't be anything left to save. As the day ended, Arya allowed herself a rare moment of solitude. She stood by the observation window, staring out at the faint blue glow of Earth below. Helios, the AI embedded in the command systems, spoke softly through the chamber's speakers. You appear troubled, Commander. Sharp observation, Arya muttered. You've done well today. Morale is high. Morale won't win this war, Helios, she said, her voice tinged with weariness. We're a small, fragile species trying to outthink an empire that's crushed civilizations for millennia. Small and fragile, yes, Helios replied. But resilient. That is your strength. Arya didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the stars. Somewhere out there, the Empire's full fleet was preparing to strike. She knew the next battle would decide humanity's fate. Let them come, she whispered to herself. We'll show them what it means to be human. The command center hummed with activity. Data streams, glowing with the pale blue of the defense grid interface, raced across the holographic displays. Commander Arya Voss stood at the center of the chaos, her sharp gaze fixed on the projection of the incoming Imperial fleet. Reports from the outer colonies? She asked, her voice cutting through the low buzz of voices and comms chatter. Lieutenant Devar looked up from his console, a shadow of worry in his expression. Fortress Outpost Alaric has been overrun. They're sending survivors to Station Zeta, but they're stalling us, Arya interrupted, her tone grim. Threx is drawing our attention outward while he moves his main fleet closer to Earth. She gestured to the map, highlighting several red markers that represented dreadnoughts at the system's edge. We need a response, Admiral Kane said, appearing on a holographic feed from his command ship. His gray eyes betrayed none of the nerves rippling through his crew. I'll take the fleet to intercept. We can slow them down, maybe take a few ships with us. No, Arya said firmly. You're not throwing our forces into a fight we can't win. We need them alive when the grid goes live. Kane crossed his arms. If we don't engage them out there, they'll be knocking on our door before the hour's out. Exactly, Arya replied. And that's where we'll hit them, on our terms, not theirs. In the silence of deep space, the Galactic Empire's fleet moved with mechanical precision. Dreadnoughts, each the size of small cities, cruised in formation, their glowing drives casting eerie light onto the smaller frigates escorting them. Aboard his flagship, Grand Warlord Xyler Threx sat in his command throne, his claws tapping against the gilded armrests. Status of the humans' defenses? Xyler asked, his voice a low rumble. An aide stepped forward, bowing deeply. Minimal resistance detected at their outer perimeters. The colonies fall with little effort. Xyler's lips twisted into a smirk. Primitive as expected. Bring the fleet to their primary world. Let them watch as we dismantle their last hope. On Earth, Arya gathered her officers in the strategy chamber. The hologram of the quantum grid dominated the center of the room, a lattice of light hovering over a wireframe Earth. Helios, the AI, projected a calm voice across the chamber. Enemy fleet will breach the inner perimeter in 6 hours. Current trajectory places them directly within the grid's effective range. 6 hours isn't long enough, Commander Voss muttered. We need more time to fine-tune the grid's targeting protocols. Lieutenant Devar glanced at her. What's the plan, Commander? Arya tapped the edge of the hologram, her eyes narrowing as she considered the options. We bait them. Kane, I need your fleet to execute a feigned retreat, draw them deeper into range. If they sense weakness, they'll push harder. Kane's hologram appeared, his expression grim. You're asking me to play the rabbit in a wolf pack. What happens if they don't fall for it? They will, Arya said with certainty. Threx is arrogant. He wants to crush us himself, make an example of Earth. He won't pass up the chance to show the galaxy our defeat. And if the grid fails? Kane asked, his tone laced with quiet defiance. Arya's jaw tightened. It won't. Hours later, Kane's fleet moved into position. Dozens of human ships, frigates, cruisers, and carriers, hovered near the edges of the defense grid, their engines glowing faintly in the darkness. On Kane's bridge, the atmosphere was tense but controlled. Crews worked quickly, running final checks on weapons and shields. Enemy fleet in sight, the tactical officer called out. Kane stared at the main display, where the Imperial dreadnoughts loomed like monolithic predators. Hold position, he ordered. The first shots came from the Empire, brilliant streaks of plasma aimed directly at Kane's fleet. Human ships scattered, weaving between the glowing streams. Pull back, Kane ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around him. Make it look convincing. In the command center on Earth, Arya watched the battle unfold in real time. The Empire was pushing harder than expected, their formation tighter, their firepower more concentrated. They're not taking the bait, Devar said, panic creeping into his voice. They will, Arya replied, her eyes locked on the display. As the Imperial fleet advanced, their dreadnoughts edged closer to the defense grid. Arya clenched her fists, waiting for the right moment. Grid status? She asked Helios. 79% operational. Full synchronization in 3 minutes. Not fast enough, Arya muttered. She opened a comm link to Kane. You need to buy us more time. Kane's voice crackled through the comm. We're doing what we can, Commander. But we're running out of ships. On the battlefield, Kane's fleet took heavy losses. A carrier exploded in a blinding flash, taking 3 frigates with it. Kane gritted his teeth as his ship shook under the impact of enemy fire. Fall back closer to the grid, he ordered. The Empire followed, their confidence growing with each destroyed human vessel. Xyler's voice boomed over the comms, his mocking laughter cutting through the tension. You call this a defense? He sneered. You humans truly are as pathetic as we believed. Kane smirked despite the dire situation. Commander, I hope your miracle grid is ready. Back in the command center, the grid's synchronization reached 100%. Helios's calm voice filled the room. Quantum defense grid is online. Targets locked. Arya gave the order. Activate. In space, the grid came alive. A web of energy surged outward, enveloping the Imperial fleet. Dreadnoughts shuddered as their systems scrambled, engines flickering and shields failing. Smaller ships spun out of control, colliding in fiery explosions. The tide had turned. On his flagship, Xyler roared in frustration as his systems flickered. What trickery is this? Arya's voice echoed over the calm and unyielding. Welcome to humanity's defense grid, Warlord. Did you think we'd roll over so easily? You've only delayed the inevitable, Xyler snarled. Your kind will still fall. Arya smirked. Let's see about that. The shattered remnants of the Imperial fleet floated lifelessly in Earth's orbit, their imposing dreadnoughts now inert hulks glowing faintly in the aftermath of the quantum defense grid's devastating strike. But Arya Voss knew better than to celebrate early. Damage report? She demanded, her voice sharp as she scanned the room. Devar glanced up from his console, sweat glistening on his brow. Grid integrity is holding, but we're down to 60% power reserves. The overload destabilized several nodes. How long until the grid is fully operational again? 3 hours minimum. We don't have 3 hours, Arya muttered, her mind racing. The tactical display updated with alarming speed. Several smaller Imperial ships had regrouped, forming a protective formation around the flagship, which was now slowly advancing toward Earth. Its weapon systems pulsed ominously, preparing for a final assault. Admiral Kane's voice broke through the calms. "Commander, they're not retreating. Threx is doubling down." "Of course he is," Arya said grimly. "This isn't just about conquest anymore. He's saving face." On board the Imperial flagship, Grand Warlord Xyler Threx paced furiously across the command deck. The shimmering projection of Earth loomed before him, a prize he had not yet claimed. "Status of our systems?" he barked at his chief engineer. "Partially restored, Warlord. Weapons are functional, but shields remain compromised." Xyler's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. "Then we strike with what we have. Send a squadron to distract their forces. I will deliver the final blow myself." "Commander, they're launching fighters," Devar called out. Arya studied the tactical display. The swarm of enemy fighters was heading directly for Earth's atmosphere. If they breached the planetary defenses, the devastation would be catastrophic. "Deploy the remaining orbital fleet to intercept," Arya ordered. "And prep a strike team." Devar hesitated. "A strike team? Commander, what are you?" "We're taking the fight to them," she said, cutting him off. Admiral Kane's hologram flickered into view. "Arya, tell me you're not planning what I think you are." "I am," she replied firmly. "We've disabled most of their fleet, but that flagship is still a threat. If we don't neutralize Threx now, he'll regroup and come back stronger." Kane sighed heavily. "You know the risks." "I do," Arya said. "But we don't have another option." Minutes later, Arya stood in the launch bay, donning her armored exosuit. Her strike team, elite soldiers equipped with cutting-edge gear, waited in silence, their faces set with determination. "Listen up," Arya said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We're boarding that flagship and taking Threx out of the equation. This won't be easy. The Empire's finest will be guarding him, and they'll fight to the last. But if we succeed, we end this war today." The team nodded in unison, their resolve palpable. The assault shuttle cut through space, weaving between debris and enemy fire. Inside, the team braced themselves as explosions rocked the hull. "Approaching the flagship," the pilot called out. "Brace for impact." The shuttle jolted as it latched onto the enemy vessel. With practiced precision, the soldiers breached the airlock, their weapons raised as they stormed the Imperial corridors. The ship was a labyrinth of gleaming black metal and glowing red conduits. Imperial soldiers poured into the hallways, their plasma rifles blazing. Arya led the charge, her exosuit's shields absorbing the brunt of the assault as her team pushed forward. "Left flank!" shouted Sergeant Hale, his rifle spitting rapid bursts of energy. Arya swung around, her pulse cannon firing in controlled bursts. The Empire's soldiers fell, but their numbers were unrelenting. "Helios update," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. The AI's calm tone responded through her helmet. "Scans indicate a direct path to the command deck, but additional hostiles are converging on your position." "Then we move fast," Arya said. After a grueling firefight, the team reached the doors to the command deck. They were massive, reinforced with the Empire's strongest alloys. "Explosives," Arya ordered. Hale moved quickly, attaching charges to the door's hinges. "Clear!" The explosion echoed through the corridor, and the doors crumpled inward. Smoke billowed into the command deck as Arya and her team stormed inside. At the center of the room stood Xyler Threx, his imposing form silhouetted against the backdrop of Earth visible through the viewport. His claws flexed, and his glowing red eyes locked onto Arya with seething rage. "So, the little human commander comes to face me," Xyler growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your fleet's in ruins, Xyler," Arya said, her weapon trained on him. "Surrender, and this ends now." Xyler laughed, a harsh, guttural sound. "You dare think your pitiful species can dictate terms to the Empire? I will crush you with my bare hands." He lunged with surprising speed for his size. Arya barely dodged, rolling to the side as his claws scraped against the metal floor. The room erupted into chaos. Imperial guards poured in, engaging Arya's team in a brutal close-quarters battle. Arya focused on Xyler, her movements calculated and precise. She fired her pulse cannon, but Xyler deflected the shots with an energy shield embedded in his armor. "You fight well," Xyler taunted, his claws swinging dangerously close. "But you're no match for me." "Funny," Arya shot back, ducking under his strike. "I was about to say the same about you." She activated the energy blade on her gauntlet, slashing at his exposed side. The blade connected, leaving a deep gash that sparked with alien blood. Xyler roared in pain, his strikes becoming more erratic. Arya seized the opportunity, dodging and countering with relentless precision. Finally, she landed a decisive blow, plunging her energy blade into his chest. Xyler staggered, his expression twisting with disbelief. "You dare!" he rasped, collapsing to the floor. Arya stood over him, her chest heaving. "We dared. And we won." With Xyler's death, the Imperial Guard surrendered. Arya's team quickly secured the ship's systems, transmitting a signal to the remaining enemy forces. Their leader was dead, and the battle was over. Back on Earth, cheers erupted across the command center as the transmission came through. Humanity had survived. Admiral Kane's voice crackled over the calm. "You did it, Arya. Hell of a gamble, but it paid off." Arya leaned against the shattered remains of Xyler's throne, exhaustion finally catching up to her. "This was just the first step," she said quietly. "They'll come back. But next time, we'll be ready."